Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and this is episode 186, and it's going to be part 3 of A Stranger in Goldenlode. And I hope you're enjoying it so far. Obviously, there was a week off, an episode off, but we're getting back to it, and Sam Lockart is still trying to figure out about the strange man in town. Here we go. Gabe reported to him a little more than an hour later. It was getting towards noon when he saw the man enter. He noticed that his limp seemed a little more pronounced. "Hi, Gabe. News?" "Sam?" "Yeah. Dunning went to see Maynard. They spent the better part of 2 hours together." "Did you hear any of it?" "Some, yes," he said. He looked away when he said this, and Sam suspected he was holding something embarrassing back. He met Maynard in his wood shop, not in his house, and his shop is pretty open to the air. "Good. What did they discuss?" "Well, at first Dunning was asking Maynard about how long he'd been in town, how the business was. Maynard played it straight as far as I can tell. Said the business for undertaking had gone way down since the end of the rush a few years back. Things had settled down in the town, and there didn't look to him to be a big pickup in the number of people moving here, which would make his undertaking full-time. Then they fell to talking about things like what made people move into town now that the rush was over, what made them leave, were there any health issues. Then they started talking lower. At least I couldn't hear him any longer. It was like Dunning was buzzing quieter and quieter. And then I was asleep outside his window, sitting down. I'm a little ashamed to admit it. I don't know how it happened. I take helping you serious, you know." "I know." "Did you hear anything after you woke up?" "Nothing of importance. I woke up because a rat scurried over my leg. They were just saying their goodbyes." Sam sat up a little straighter. "A rat, you say?" "Yeah, little vermin scared the crud out of me. Almost yelled out before I remembered where I was and how embarrassing it would be to get caught listening in on their talk." "Anything else?" "Just that I went over to the church and asked Parson Smith for the time. That's how I know for sure he was there for 2 hours." "And you were asleep for how long?" "Don't know for sure, but most of it. Maybe an hour and a half, based on what I heard before and after I slept." "What on earth could they have had to talk about for that long? And you say that Dunning's voice was getting quiet before you fell asleep?" "Yeah, I could hardly hear him. But after I woke up, they were talking normal enough." "Thanks, Gabe." Sam took $1 out of his pocket and gave it to him. "Keep at it. If you find out anything else interesting, let me know." "Will do. Thanks, Sam." Gabe got up and left. Sam figured he was going to the little boarding house he lived in to sleep, maybe pay his landlady. That meant it would be time to go see John Maynard. But that would have to wait until afternoon. He'd seen the announcement on the church sign earlier. There was a funeral today. Maynard would be busy. He took a stroll around the town, trying to find out if anyone else new had come to town. No one had. He also kept his eye out for anything unusual. Here he had a bit more luck. Out of the last few houses on the north side of town, he spotted another rat. This one scurried behind a house and out of sight. When Sam went around the corner, it had gone. Sam knocked, but no one was home. He knew the occupant slightly. It was a single man who worked one of the mines. He undoubtedly was away working. Not having anything else going on, he eventually went back to John Maynard's home and shop. He waited outside on the porch, which had a comfortable enough bench and enough of an overhang to keep the warm fall sun off of him. Eventually, Maynard came back to his home. Sam stood up and watched him walk towards him. John Maynard was tall and lean, clean-shaven, and with a serious look on his face. All the time, not just because he saw Sam waiting for him. "Sam Lockart, how are you this afternoon?" John said. He and Sam shook hands. "Come on in." John opened the door and Sam followed. They each put their hat on the hat stand near the door. "Coffee?" John offered. "I'll rewarm it." "Thank you," Sam replied. John put his percolator on the stove. Sam didn't care that it would taste burnt. He had accepted it merely as a way of ingratiating himself. "Not to be rude, but I suppose this is about Mr. Dunning," John said. John had been in the town a long time and knew Sam's business. Knew it well, since on 3 occasions it had led to him getting paid for a casket. You are quite right. I understand you've spoken with him. Him, with Gabe listening in at the window? Right. Do you know if Mr. Dunning knew that Gabe was listening in? I don't know either way. He didn't make it known, but he may have just not said anything. John sat down at the chair closest to the stove. He reached down and scratched his calf. Mr. Dunning, I think, was playing his cards close to the chest. Did that apply to the things you talked about? Oh, yes, John said. He wanted to know all about the town, its history, and so on. He didn't answer too much about himself, though I asked. What did he say? He was making his way across the country, looking for his town where his services were needed. He said he thought Goldenlode might be such a town. I told him that I was only part-time and had to do woodworking in addition. He didn't seem too put off by that, though. I imagine if you and he have to split your business here between you, that would leave little to make a living on. You have that right. I mean, I'm not one to tell a man not to do his work, but here there just isn't much work to go around. Has there been any pickup in your work? Anything unusual? Nothing you don't know about yourself. We had a funeral today. That was just old Mr. Adam Habert from a heart attack. Nothing out of the way. Sam paused. I always hear about how dirty it is working in the mines. Any chance there'll be a spate of lung diseases killing the miners? John considered this, scratching just below his knee. You might need to see one of the mine doctors for that, and maybe they're hiding it if it's true. But, well, I've seen a few with coughs and other problems. Nothing suggests to me there's going to be a load of miners dying off anytime soon. Sam nodded. How did Dunning strike you? John got up and poured the coffee while he answered. Professional. Right comportment for an undertaker. Didn't show much emotion. I had to learn my coolness the hard way. People don't want their undertaker showing a lot of emotion. Not before the funeral, not at it, not afterwards. They're in mourning, you see, and they need someone nearby who can be in charge. Let them feel whatever they need to feel. They can't do that if their undertaker is showing too much sadness or anything else. Their pastor can be warm and kindly, but not the undertaker. Besides, just a hint of any emotion is more than enough. If you're in mourning and I give you just a tiny bit of sympathy, they'll remember it like I gave you the full hug. Every emotion is ramped up. So that's another reason we have to be taciturn. Any emotion they see is multiplied tenfold or more. Anyway, Dunning is like that. He shows very little of what he's thinking or feeling. He'll do well when he finds the right town. You figure he'll move on? He never said so. But you know, if he and I have to split the undertaking business, I hope he has a second way of making money. Sam drank his coffee. It hadn't been heated too much, and it wasn't all that bad. They drank some more while he thought of how best to ask his next questions. John, he finally said, I've been concerned with him. I can't put my finger on it. I'm trying to convince myself it's not just a connection with undertaking. But I've never gotten a strange feeling off of you, and I have with him from the first moment. Do you understand what I mean? You're asking if I get that same feeling? Yes. People in our profession don't usually say bad things about anyone. We tend to take the speak no ill of the dead concept and apply it broadly. Still, he said, taking a drink from his mug, I know what you mean. There's something odd there. Did anything unusual happen during your talk? This is the question Sam had really wanted to ask, and felt this was the right time for it, just after John had made his little concession. John thought about that. No, I wouldn't say so, other than Gabe was listening in. Did the meeting go fast? Yes, I was surprised later on to see how long we had talked. Didn't feel that long at all. Sam finished his coffee. Thanks, John. I think it's time to get back to it. And that's the end of the episode for this week. Hope you're enjoying the story. Obviously, things have been moving along a little bit. This is one of those episodes where not a ton, obvious things are happening, but there are definitely things going on under the surface. And yeah, so we'll see you next week with another episode, and thanks for listening. Words and music, copyright 2021, CryptoBiography, LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.